This is 303Tracker, a software synth coded by Jeroen Schellekens from the Netherlands. It was a never-finished program for the aftermarket of the Commodore Amiga, released in 1998. Since the software was never finished, it lacks some functionality such as saving of projects. The lines are sequenced using the tracker style, that is, a 16-step per bar sequencer, where the notes are displayed vertically. Each step has, in addition to the notes, the classic 303 sound tweaking parameters, which I go more in-depth detail about in my video about the FB383. The lines are rendered in 3 steps. First it will sequence the raw waveforms using the VCO. Then it will shape the waveforms with cutoff filter envelope. And finally the amplitude envelopes will be tweaked by the VCA. The synth software is not real-time. In fact, since it's coded in Amos, which is a high-level basic interpreter, it is really slow. What you see now is actually a video footage taken from a real Amiga when a bassline with 32 steps is rendered. The CPU used are the Motorola MC68030, clocked at 50 MHz. Of course, the 68030 is not the fastest CPU you can get for the classic Amiga, but certainly not the slowest one either. Using a 68060 would decrease the render times remarkably, but you would still have to wait for the rendering to finish at a quite slow pace. Fortunately, if you're using the Amiga emulator UAE with the JIT just-in-time mode and a modestly modern CPU, you can speed it up that much that it renders it faster than real-time. Show now. Did you miss it? Here it is once more. Another bonus with using UAE was that I could save the machine states, which resolved the problem with that it was not possible to natively save the projects. However, even though it's slow, it does sound really great. I really love the fat, crunchy, quite lo-fi bass lines you can make with this software, so it's well worth the waiting to get the samples rendered. There is one minor issue with 303Tracker though. The rendered samples are a bit untuned. They are in fact about 127 cents too low. 100 of the cents, that is 1 half tone, are easy to solve in 303Tracker itself by transposing the notes 1 half step up, but the rest of the tuning have to be resolved in post-edit. It's quite easy to fix that issue with a program such as Audacity though. I've made a little macro for that task. You could use autotune of course, but that will probably increase the number of unwanted sound artifacts. When the bass lines were exported, I assembled them to longer ones, consisting of several bars using Cubase. However, that resulted in a quite polished sound, since it's internally rendered with 16-bit precision. To get a bit more dirty sound, I play the samples from a real Commodore Amiga 1200. Coming up is a short description of the Amiga's sound capabilities. I hope I got everything correct. The Amiga sound is by heart controlled by a sound chip called Paula. It has 4 independent DMA-driven 8-bit PCM sample channels with 6-bit volume controllers on each channel that controls analog attenuators. The 4 analog outputs are mixed internally in the Paula chip, with 2 of them on the left channel and 2 of them on the right channel. Normally with a frequency rate up to about 28 kHz. However, there are a few tricks to increase its fidelity. By using a softer trick, you can play 14-bit stereo sound. This is achieved by combining a channel pair, either right or left sound output. One of the channels will play the high byte of a 16-bit sample at the highest volume, and the other channel will play the low byte of a 16-bit sample at the lowest volume. Since the volume attenuators are analog, the noise floor will also be attenuated. This will increase the bit depth playback to 14-bit, by adding the additional 6-bit from the volume controller. The lowest 2 bits of the 16-bit sample will be discarded. This will get a theoretical signal-to-noise ratio caused by quantization errors at around 86 decibels in comparison to 8-bit with about 50 decibel signal-to-noise ratio and 16-bit with around 98 decibel signal-to-noise ratio. That basically means that the audio from 14-bit sample rate might produce some audible noise, but it's remarkably quieter than 8-bit sample rate. To decrease quantization errors in the digital audio further, the 14-bit driver can be calibrated for the specific digital to analog converter. The audio channel's frequency rates of the Amiga are dependent on the horizontal scanline's frequency rate of the monitor signal. The Polar chip can play 2 samples per video scanline. That means that on a PAL system it's possible to theoretically play samples with up to around 31 kHz frequency rate. But the Amiga system is designed to handle up to around 28 kHz. Taking the Nyquist frequency in account, the highest frequency that will be audible is around 14 kHz. This can also be tweaked for higher fidelity. If you're using a screen mode such as double PAL, the scanline frequency rate will be doubled. And that will increase the sample rate twice as well, up to a whopping 56 kHz frequency rate. That means the highest frequency audible will be at around 28 kHz, way above what the human ear can perceive. Not bad for a computer audio chip, first released in 1985. As a bonus, there will be some cross-references between the audio modes in the end of this video. The 16-bit demo sound in this video was played back with my Amiga 1200 using the 14-bit driver calibrated for my system at 44.1 kHz frequency rate. The low-pass filter of the Amiga was of course turned off. Now it's time to showcase the lines. I will display screenshots from the interface of 303Tracker, although keep in mind that there are no real-time moving screens in the software. This is 303Tracker. This is 303Tracker. This is 303Tracker. This is 303Tracker. This is 303Tracker.